Hey, so let's say we're trying to cut out one shape from another shape in Spline. How the hell do you do that? It's so easy. Okay, drag whatever shape 1 is over shape 2. So we've got red cube, blue cube, and then highlight them both. So click on the screen, drag, highlight. You see how these two are lit up? That's how you know that they are highlighted. And then you click on this button here to subtract them. Okay? Ooh, that's a bit of a strange one. Okay, so now you've subtracted two shapes. Important to note is that whatever the top shape is of this Boolean, you've now got this called a Boolean. Once you do that process, this UI changes and you now have this. If you drag this red cube below the blue cube, you see how the Boolean operation has changed. Okay, you've basically, this is how the layers work in Spline, right? So you've got one layer on the top, which is the one that's doing the interaction, if that makes sense. That's how I like to think of it anyway. It's just a bit easier to see once we actually drag these. Okay, so that's that. Now, can we edit them while we're in this operation phase? Yeah, we can. Okay, so let's get this. So you see how this is a bit messed up? I'm like, oh, I wish that cut out the whole way. Well, look at this. Let's say I wanted to widen this. You see how I hover over the edges? A little arrow comes up there. I'm going to click this red icon, which is going to change the angles, and ba-boom. You see how that's changed the operation? Let's scroll this angle and then you can see it better. You see how that's changed it, like even when we're in this Boolean, okay? So that's kind of useful to know. Let's say you do the Boolean operation or you do this subtraction method and something messes up, then you can edit it. Or if you're like, you know what, I actually just want to see this whole thing again, take it out. Just take it out, and then you can do your editing. I don't know what you might want to do. Let's say corners. We want to change the corners on here. So I'm going to do that. Oh, yeah. And then I want to drag the red cube back in. Okay, we can do that. Easy, right? So that's the first thing, super simple. Boolean. Now, there's a couple of other options that you may have noticed. I'm just going to drag that back out, delete that. So now we've got two separate shapes once more. Okay? If I drag that again, whoop. If I drag that over this. So now we've got these two intersecting shapes, but there's no operation. So these are two unique shapes. I can highlight them both. And then there's other options here too. So we've got this one which merges them. So now they've basically taken on the same properties. As you can see, the colors have changed. I'm going to click Command Z just to see the original again. And then we've got this other operation here, which basically takes away, it's like the inverse of the subtract. So, whoop. So if we move this, if I move this blue shape around, you see we've got a cool little effect going on here. Whoop. And you can see how cool this is because you could have multiple different objects that combine together to stack into one object, for example. Very nice. Okay, now let's try something else. Let's say we wanted different shapes to do this with. You can do this Boolean operation with any shape. Okay, so we've got a cylinder, and then let's get this helix. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these over each other. If I highlight them both, and then I, and then I go to align to, and if I go center for each of these. And let's make this helix a little bit wider. Whoop. Maybe let's drag it like that. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to do that same process, center, center, center. Now what I can do is highlight them both again, and then I can click this central icon of the Boolean. And now I've got a kind of drill bit. But you can see how quickly you can change things, how Booleans are really helpful to create quite unique shapes in Spline. But let's say I wanted to do a hole down the middle of this cylinder, okay? So the middle, I wanted it to be hollowed out. What I can do is I can then get another cylinder, and I'm just going to make it slightly smaller than this other one here. And I'm going to drag it all the way down so that it's longer, but it's actually thinner. So I'm going to put this, you see how it's outside the Boolean right now. If I drag it in, they're two individual shapes. They're not, the Boolean operation hasn't actually happened yet, but if I go like this, so that they're all nicely centered up, then what I can do is drag this into the Boolean, and as you can see, we've now got a really unique shape. It's kind of a vase now. However, if you drag your cylinder, the hollowed out cylinder, for example, down to the bottom, it messes things up. Okay, and that is because we've got different layers happening here, and you need to work out which layers are meant to go where in order to make things work. If we wanted this helix to be the only thing showing, which doesn't really make sense, then you drag that to the bottom, but this order works for what we're trying to do. So the layers of this Boolean does matter. If you try and just like freestyle a Boolean and don't really understand the layers thing, then it's all going to mess up, and you're going to be like, Jack, what the hell? You said you make a tutorial about Booleans and this is useless. So hopefully that is useful to know. You can Boolean a Boolean, which is kind of a fun thing to say. So let's say I wanted to do some kind of a star. Let's get a star. And I'm going to extrude that. So now we've got a massive star. And I'm going to put that over the top. I'm not even going to try and explain this. Let's just go for it. We got some bits cut out. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Whoop. And let's get those two, and I'm going to just try and center. Actually, I'm going to try and... Oh, that hasn't really worked. But you kind of get the idea here that we've got something that has cut out the top of all of this cylinder in a separate Boolean, and then you've got this Boolean which is interacting with this cylinder. And the advantage of this, you can actually, one, I find it's just really helpful to visualize stuff and be like, okay, this is interacting with this is interacting with this. But the other thing is that if you have different stacked Booleans, I wouldn't recommend doing this too much, because if you're embedding this in a website, for example, the more Booleans you add, the heavier the file is, because it's kind of complicated if you imagine all of these different pixels basically needing to be cut out or, you know, subtracted. And if they move, then, you know, it's it's heavy for the browser to process. But it's just really, really helpful to cut things out, stack things, and actually make a really unique shape when the shapes that are just given from Spline are not sufficient. Hope that's helped. Ramble, ending here. Let me know if that was helpful.